At Morixa Tales, we believe in the power of storytelling. Our scripts weave together deep emotions and dramatic turns to deliver justice where it is most needed. Experience captivating mysteries where the truth eventually shines through, leaving a lasting impact on your heart and mind.
My daughter hadn't spoken a word in 3 years, not since she was 3 years old. Doctors called it selective mutism. I called it heartbreaking. Then one Wednesday night, as I reached for the tea, my husband left me. Her voice shattered the silence. "Mommy, don't drink the tea. Daddy put something bad in it." 5 words that saved my life and revealed a murder I never saw coming. Welcome to today's story. Please like, subscribe, and comment your location below. A quick note, while this narrative contains fictional elements for educational purposes, the lessons it teaches are completely real. Any similarity to actual people or places is unintentional. The sound of my daughter's voice after 3 years of silence was the most beautiful and terrifying thing I'd ever heard. "Mommy, don't drink the tea." 5 words. 5 simple words that shattered my world and saved my life. It was Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, 8:17 in the evening. I remember the exact time because I just glanced at the kitchen clock, wondering when Derek would be home from his late meeting. Our apartment in Capitol Hill was quiet except for the hum of the radiator and the soft patter of rain against the windows. Chloe stood in the doorway of the kitchen, her small frame silhouetted by the hallway light. She was 6 years old, wearing her favorite purple pajamas with the stars on them. Her dark hair was still damp from her bath. She hadn't spoken a single word since she was 3 years and 4 months old. The doctors had called it selective mutism, triggered by trauma they couldn't identify. We'd tried everything: child psychologists, play therapy, speech therapy medications. Nothing worked. Chloe could speak. Her vocal cords were fine. She simply chose not to. For 3 years, she'd communicated through nods, gestures, and drawings. For 3 years, I'd wondered what had stolen my daughter's voice. Now standing in our kitchen doorway, she was speaking. "Mommy, don't drink the tea." My hand froze halfway to the mug on the counter. The yellow thermos Derek had left in the refrigerator that morning, labeled in his handwriting, "For Marley, drink tonight before bed." "Chloe." My voice came out as a whisper. "Baby, did you just—" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Don't drink it. Please don't drink it. Daddy put something bad in it." The room tilted. I set down the mug, my hands shaking. "What do you mean, sweetheart? What did Daddy put in it?" Chloe walked toward me, her steps hesitant, her whole body trembling. "I heard him on the phone Tuesday night. I couldn't sleep, and I heard him talking in his office." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. "What did you hear?" "He said—" Chloe's voice broke. "He said, the tea's ready. She'll be in the hospital by Thursday night. Friday morning, Hoffman's office, Portland. $4 million, freedom. You and me, Celeste." The world stopped. Celeste. My sister. Derek's phone calls with Celeste. "Baby," I whispered, kneeling down to her level. "Are you sure that's what you heard?" Chloe nodded, sobbing now. "I'm sure, Mommy. I'm sure because I heard him before. Before 3 years ago." Her voice was so small. "When I was 3. I heard him on the phone in his office, late at night. I went downstairs to get water, and his door was open a little bit, and I heard him." My blood ran cold. "What did you hear 3 years ago?" "He said, tomorrow night, last time. He'll be gone by morning. And then he said, 'I love you too.' But he wasn't talking to you, Mommy. He said a name. Celeste." Oh God, no." "The next day was February 12th, 2022, Chloe whispered. "Grandpa died that day. My father, who died suddenly of a heart attack at 65. Natural causes, the doctors had said. No autopsy needed. I was little." Chloe continued her words, tumbling out faster now. "I didn't understand everything, but I knew Daddy said someone would be gone, and then Grandpa was gone. And Daddy said he loved someone who wasn't you. And I thought, I thought if I stayed really quiet, maybe Daddy would forget I heard. Maybe then you'd be safe. I pulled her into my arms, my entire body shaking. You stopped talking to protect me. She nodded against my chest. I was scared, Mommy. I was so scared. But I couldn't let Daddy hurt you like he hurt Grandpa. 3 years. My daughter had carried this secret for 3 years, sacrificing her voice to keep me safe. Why are you telling me now, baby? Because Tuesday night I heard him again. Same place, same voice. He said you'd go to the hospital Thursday night. He said Friday morning he'd meet someone in Portland. He said $4 million. He said freedom and Celeste. She pulled back, looking up at me with those wise, terrified eyes. This morning, I saw Daddy put the yellow thermos in the fridge. It has his handwriting on it. For Marley, drink tonight before bed. Mommy, he's gonna hurt you like he hurt Grandpa. I know he is. I looked at the clock. 8:23. Derek would be home any minute expecting me to drink whatever poison he'd prepared. I looked at my daughter who'd given up 3 years of her childhood to save my life. I looked at the yellow thermos on the counter, and I knew with absolute certainty that my husband had murdered my father 3 years ago, that my sister had been his accomplice and lover, that they were planning to harm me tonight, steal my inheritance tomorrow, and disappear with everything we had. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. Mommy. Chloe's voice was small and scared. I held her close, kissing the top of her head. You were so brave, baby, so incredibly brave. Now I need you to tell me everything again, from the very beginning. Can you do that for me? She nodded. I hit record on my phone. Okay, sweetheart, start from 3 years ago. Tell me everything you remember. And in our quiet kitchen with the rain falling outside and 43 minutes before Derek came home, my daughter finally told me the truth that had been trapped inside her for 3 years. The truth that would save us both. Chloe took a deep breath. The words she'd held inside for 3 years began to pour out. We were in my bedroom, door closed, rain drumming against the windows. 8:45 in the evening. Derek wouldn't be home until 11. We had time, but not much. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone recording, hands shaking. Chloe sat cross-legged on the floor in front of me, her purple pajamas damp from tears, her voice small but steady. It was nighttime, she began. February 11th, 2022. I was 3 years old. I couldn't sleep, so I went downstairs to get water from the kitchen. I nodded, encouraging her to continue. Daddy's office door was open a little bit. Just a crack. I heard his voice, so I stopped. What did you hear, baby? He was on the phone. I didn't know who he was talking to, but his voice sounded different. Not like when he talks to you. He sounded happy, excited. Chloe's eyes were distant, remembering. He said, tomorrow night, last time, he'll be gone by morning. My stomach clenched. Then he said, I love you too, but we can't tell her yet. Soon. After it's done. Did he say a name? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Celeste, Chloe whispered. He said, I love you, Celeste. My sister, my husband. 4 years ago, they'd started their affair while I was pregnant with Chloe. What happened the next day? I asked gently. Chloe's voice grew smaller. The next morning, Grandpa came over for breakfast. You made pancakes. He seemed fine, happy. He told me a story about when you were little. I remembered that morning. Dad had been in good spirits, laughing, playing with Chloe. But that afternoon he said he felt tired. You told him to rest on the couch. He fell asleep watching cartoons with me. And that night he said he felt worse. His chest hurt. You called 911. The ambulance came. They took him away. Chloe's voice cracked. He died at the hospital. The doctors said it was his heart. Natural causes. Everyone was sad, but they said sometimes these things just happen. I pulled her onto my lap, holding her tight. But you didn't think it was natural, did you? She shook her head against my chest. I was 3, Mommy. I didn't understand everything, but I knew Daddy said someone would be gone by morning. And then Grandpa was gone. I knew Daddy loved someone called Celeste, not you, and I thought—" She looked up at me with those wise, terrified eyes. "I thought if Daddy knew I hurt him, he might make you disappear too. So I decided to never ever talk again. If I didn't talk, maybe he'd forget I was there that night. Maybe he'd forget I heard. Maybe then you'd be safe." 3 years. My daughter had chosen silence to protect me. "For 3 years, I watched everything," Chloe continued. "I watched Daddy and Aunt Celeste at family dinners. I watched how they looked at each other when they thought no one was watching. I saw them have business meetings that didn't look like business. I heard them talk about money on the phone. What about me?" I asked. "What did you see? You were sad after Grandpa died, really sad. But you didn't know why Daddy and Aunt Celeste were being so nice to you. They kept saying they wanted to help with Grandpa's estate, with his money, with everything. You trusted them." I had trusted them. Completely. "I wanted to tell you so many times," Chloe said, tears streaming down her face. "But I was scared. What if I was wrong? What if Daddy didn't really hurt Grandpa? What if telling you made him angry and he hurt you?" "So you stayed quiet." I stayed quiet. At preschool, at home, everywhere. The doctors said I had selective mutism. You and Daddy took me to so many doctors, so many therapists, but I couldn't tell them. I couldn't tell anyone. I rocked her gently, my own tears falling into her hair. "What changed, baby? Why are you telling me now?" Chloe pulled back her expression, urgent. 2 nights ago, Tuesday night. I couldn't sleep again. I went downstairs for water and Daddy's office door was open, just like before, and I heard him on the phone again. My blood ran cold. He said, "The tea is ready. She'll be in the hospital by Thursday night. Friday morning, Hoffman's office, Portland. $4 million, freedom, you and me, Celeste." $4 million. The trust fund Dad had left split between Chloe and me. It required both our signatures to access. "This morning," Chloe continued, "I saw Daddy put a yellow thermos in the refrigerator. It had a label with his handwriting, 'For Marley drink tonight before bed.' I knew he was going to hurt you, just like he hurt Grandpa." She gripped my hands. "I couldn't stay quiet anymore, Mommy. I couldn't let him hurt you. Even if it meant he'd know I heard everything. Even if it meant he'd be angry at me. I had to tell you." I held her face in my hands, looking into her brave, beautiful eyes. "You saved my life, Chloe. You are the bravest person I've ever known." "Are we safe now?" she whispered. I looked at the clock. 9:15. Derek would be home in less than 2 hours, expecting me to drink the poisoned tea. "Not yet," I said honestly, "but we will be, I promise." I picked up my phone and listened to the recording. Chloe's voice clear and steady, telling everything. It was evidence, but would it be enough? I thought about my father who died 3 years ago, not from natural causes, from murder. Slow poisoning over 3 weeks while we all watched helpless and ignorant. I thought about Celeste, my sister, who'd helped plan it all, who'd betrayed our family for money and a married man. I thought about Derek, who'd shared my bed, raised my daughter, and plotted my death the entire time. And I thought about Chloe, who'd sacrificed 3 years of her childhood, 3 years of her voice to keep me alive. I looked at my daughter, her eyes red from crying, her small body trembling with exhaustion and fear. "I need to call someone," I said. "Someone who can help us. Someone I trust." "Who?" Chloe asked. I thought about my options. The police, they'd need more evidence. A lawyer, that would take time we didn't have. Then I remembered. Whitney Bradford, my best friend from college, investigative journalist, smart, fierce, and loyal to a fault. I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling Aunt Whitney," I said. "She'll know what to do." Chloe nodded, her small hand gripping mine. I dialed Whitney's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. "Marley." Whitney's voice came through. "It's almost 9:30. Is everything okay?" I looked at Chloe, then at the clock. Derek would be home in 1 hour and 43 minutes. "No." I said, my voice steady despite the fear. "Everything is not okay. I need you, right now." I'm on my way, Whitney said without hesitation. 20 minutes. I hung up and pulled Chloe close. We're going to be okay, baby, I promise. But as I held my daughter in the quiet bedroom, listening to the rain and the clock ticking down, I knew the hardest part was just beginning. Whitney. The name cut through my panic like a blade. Whitney Bradford, my best friend since sophomore year at UW. The investigative journalist who'd broken the Pierce County corruption scandal. The woman who'd sat with me through my father's funeral, who'd never once liked Derek, who'd bitten her tongue for 7 years because she loved me. If anyone would believe me, it was her. My thumb was already moving, scrolling through contacts, finding her name. The phone rang once. Marley, you okay? It's late. I need you. My voice cracked. Emergency. Can you come now? A beat of silence. Then I'm grabbing my keys. 20 minutes. The line went dead. No questions. No hesitation. That was Whitney. My phone buzzed. Derek stuck even later. Permits issue. Won't be home till 11. Sorry, babe. I stared at the message. 11 p.m. Either he was genuinely delayed or he was giving me more time. Time to drink the tea. Time to get sick. Time to become incapacitated enough to manipulate. I didn't respond. Let him wonder. Chloe was curled in her bed, eyes closed, but breathing too fast to be asleep. I smoothed her hair back. Someone's coming to help us, baby. Mommy's friend Whitney. You're safe now, I promise. Her eyes opened a crack. You promise. I promise. I kissed her forehead. Get some rest. Tomorrow we fix this. She finally relaxed her breathing, evening out. I watched her for another minute, my brave, brilliant daughter who'd given up her voice to save my life. Then I forced myself to move. The kitchen was dark except for the microwave clock, 9:03 p.m. I opened the refrigerator and there it was. Yellow travel thermos, Derek's handwriting in black Sharpie on a piece of masking tape, relaxing tea, drink before bed. My hands shook as I pulled it out. The metal was cold. The lid was sealed tight. I didn't open it, evidence Whitney would say preserve the evidence, but I could imagine the liquid inside. Clear, tasteless, deadly in its intent, if not its chemistry. I set it on the counter and backed away, arms wrapped around myself. 3 years ago, had there been another thermos, another drink. Something Dad had consumed in this very apartment, trusting, unsuspecting, while Derek watched and waited. The buzzer rang. 9:24 p.m. I nearly ran to the door. Whitney burst in like a storm system, dark hair wild from the wind leather jacket, still dripping rain. She took one look at my face and her expression hardened into something dangerous. Okay, tell me which son of a bitch we're taking down. I told her everything. Not the slow, agonizing revelation Chloe had given me, but the brutal facts, Derek and Celeste. Dad's death. 3 years of Chloe's silence. The phone call 2 nights ago. The thermos in my kitchen right now. Whitney's face went through a cascade of emotions, shock, fury, grief, and finally cold calculation. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I never trusted him, she finally said. I should have said something years ago. You did say something. I didn't listen. Because you loved him. Because you thought. She shook her head. Celeste, your own sister. That's... She stopped, jaw clenched. And Chloe, 3 years. That baby carried this for 3 years. She thought if she stayed silent, he'd forget she knew. She thought it would keep me safe. Jesus. Whitney's eyes were bright with tears she wouldn't let fall. Okay. We need to test that thermos. I know someone. Forensic Tech owes me a favor from the corruption case. If there's something in that tea, he'll find it. She was already pulling out her phone, dialing. Marcus, it's Whitney. I need a huge favor. Tonight. I'm serious, life and death. A pause. I'm coming to you. 30 minutes. She hung up, looked at me. Get the thermos. Don't open it. We're going to the lab. Now it's almost 10. Now before your husband gets home. Before he realizes you haven't drunk it. Before he changes the plan. She grabbed my jacket from the hook. Move, Marley. I grabbed the thermos, wrapping it in a dish towel like it might explode. Whitney drove because my hands were shaking too badly to hold the wheel. The streets were empty rain, turning the city lights into watercolor smears against the windshield. The lab was in Fremont, a nondescript building that looked like a dentist's office. Marcus met us at the back entrance, mid-40s, tired eyes, latex gloves already on. This better be good, Bradford. It's attempted murder. Whitney handed him the thermos. We need to know what's in it. Fast. His expression shifted. He took the thermos carefully, professionally. Give me 2 hours, maybe 3. I'll text you. We went to an all-night diner across the street. Whitney ordered coffee, neither of us drank. I couldn't sit still, couldn't think straight. My phone sat on the table between us like a bomb. No calls from Derek, no texts. Let me look something up, Whitney said, pulling out her laptop. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Derek Whitmore, Seattle. Let's see what Google knows. I watched her face change as she scrolled. What gambling sites? Like a lot of them. And she turned the screen toward me. Property records. 3 investment properties he bought in 2022. All foreclosed in 2023. He lost a fortune. I felt sick. How much? She kept scrolling, pulling up more records. According to this, he leveraged about $800,000. Lost it all. $800,000. I pulled up our joint bank account on my phone, the one that had held Dad's life insurance payout. It had been $1.5 million 3 years ago. I'd barely looked at it since Derek said he was investing it, growing it for Chloe's future. The balance loaded $387,442.68. Whitney. I turned my phone toward her. There should be $1.5 million in here. She stared, did the math. He burned through over $1 million in 3 years. And now he needs more. My voice was hollow. Dad's trust. $4 million, split between Celeste and me, but it requires both our signatures for any major transaction. So he needs you incapacitated, hospitalized, vulnerable enough to sign anything. Whitney's face was grim. Or dead. Not dead. Not yet. I wrapped my arms around myself. If I'm dead, Celeste can't access the money alone either. They need me alive long enough to sign. Then, I couldn't finish the sentence. My phone buzzed. Marcus, come back. You need to see this. We ran across the street, rain soaking through our jackets. Marcus was waiting in the lab, the thermos open on the counter test results printing from a machine. This isn't tea, he said without preamble. I mean, there's tea in it. Chamomile, actually. But there's also midazolam, a sedative, and a heavy-duty laxative compound. What would that do? I asked, though part of me already knew. Midazolam causes sedation, confusion, memory problems. Combined with the laxative's severe gastrointestinal distress, dehydration, you'd be violently ill within hours, sick enough for hospitalization. The effects would last 48 to 72 hours. Thursday morning, Thursday night in the hospital, Friday morning at Hoffman's office in Portland. The timeline Chloe had overheard was perfect. It wouldn't kill me. Probably not, but it would incapacitate you completely. And in your state, if someone presented you with papers to sign, Marcus shook his head, you'd be in no condition to understand what you were agreeing to. Whitney was already taking photos. The thermos, the test results, the label with Derek's handwriting. Marcus printed everything, made copies, sealed the original sample in an evidence bag. This is enough, Whitney said, her voice fierce. This is physical evidence of attempted assault. Combined with Chloe's testimony, your father's suspicious death, we need more than that. I looked at the clock, 1:47 a.m. We need a prosecutor, someone who'll believe us, someone who'll move fast enough to stop them before Friday. Whitney met my eyes. A slow smile spread across her face. I know someone. Cameron Rhodes opened his apartment door at 3 a.m. wearing a faded Georgetown Law t-shirt and an expression that said, "This better be life or death." Whitney. His voice was rough with sleep. "This better be conspiracy to commit assault, fraud, and possibly murder." Whitney pushed past him. Important enough, I followed her inside, clutching my phone. The apartment was exactly what I'd expect from a prosecutor, books everywhere, case files stacked on surfaces, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the dark city. Cameron closed the door, sharp eyes moving from Whitney to me. Late 30s, dark hair, disheveled, 3 days of stubble. But his gaze was direct assessing. "Marley Collins," Whitney said. "Cameron Rhodes, King County prosecutor. Marley's husband and sister are trying to poison her. Probably murdered her father 3 years ago. We have 48 hours before they finalize their plan." Cameron's skepticism sharpened into focus. "Sit. Start from the beginning." I sat on his couch, covered in legal briefs. "My daughter Chloe has been silent for 3 years. Tonight she spoke. She told me my husband Derek and my sister Celeste are planning to poison me and that they killed my father. Your daughter is 6 years old. She was 3 when it happened. She overheard them planning my father's death the night before he died." I pulled out my phone, hands shaking. I recorded her telling me. "Do you want to hear it?" He held out his hand. I gave him the phone already cued. Hit play. Chloe's voice filled the apartment, small, scratchy, but clear, describing the phone call she'd overheard. "Tomorrow night, one last time. He'll be gone by morning." The name, Celeste. I watched Cameron's face as he listened. The skepticism began to crack. By the time Chloe described my father's death, Cameron's jaw was tight. When she explained her 3 years of silence, maybe if I never talked again, he'd forget I heard. Maybe then Mommy would be safe. His eyes closed briefly. The recording ended. Cameron was quiet, then handed back my phone. "That's the most heartbreaking thing I've ever heard." His voice was different now, softer. But it's testimony from a 3-year-old. Any defense attorney would, "There's more." Whitney pulled out the lab results. "We tested the tea Derek left for Marley tonight. Midazolam and industrial-strength laxatives. Enough to hospitalize her for 2 to 3 days. Cameron read the report. His expression darkened. "My father died of a heart attack 3 years ago," I said. "Ruled natural causes. But the timeline matches what Chloe heard, and Derek was alone with him. Derek got him water. You want an exhumation order?" I nodded. "If they killed my father for his money and now they're trying to incapacitate me, what money?" "Trust fund. My father left everything requiring both my sister's and my signature for major transactions, about $4 million remaining. They need me alive long enough to sign then." I stopped. "Then you become a liability." Cameron set down the report. "When Derek leaves for Portland this morning, 6 a.m. I checked my phone, 3:47. He has a meeting Friday at a lawyer's office. Lawrence Hoffman. Chloe heard him say, $4 million, freedom, you and me, Celeste." Hoffman. Cameron's face hardened. "I know that name. He's dirty. We've suspected him of fraud for years. They're planning to forge my signature or drug me into signing. Friday morning, they're completing the transaction." Cameron paced to the window. The sky was beginning to lighten. He was quiet for a long moment. Why didn't Chloe speak before? She was 3. She thought if she was silent, Derek would forget she knew. She thought it would keep me safe. And you believe her completely. I saw Derek pour something into that thermos. I have the lab results. Our bank account lost over $1 million in 3 years. Derek has gambling debts, foreclosed properties. I met his eyes. My daughter gave up her voice for 3 years to protect me. Yes, I believe her. Cameron turned back. If we do this, you and Chloe will testify. Under cross-examination. Are you prepared? Yes. Without your father's body, we can't prove murder. Just conspiracy to defraud and attempted assault. Then we get an exhumation order. We prove it. He nodded slowly. We have 48 hours before they complete this fraud. That's not much time. So what do we do? Whitney asked. Cameron's expression shifted into something calculating. We let them think they're winning. He grabbed a legal pad. Marley, you go home. You pretend to drink the tea. You fake being sick. You text Derek updates Thursday. You're not feeling well, you're getting worse. Maybe you need the hospital. You want me to lie to him? I want you to give him exactly what he expects. A sick wife, incapacitated, controllable. Meanwhile, we document everything. We coordinate with Portland PD. Friday morning at Hoffman's office, we catch them in the act. A sting operation, Whitney said. Exactly. We need Derek confident. We need him and your sister to walk into that office believing they've won. Then we close the trap. I thought about Chloe silent for 3 years. 48 hours seemed like nothing. Can you do it? Cameron asked. Can you lie to your husband for 2 days, look him in the face and pretend you don't know what he is? I thought about my father's last hours, about Chloe's stolen voice, about the thermos in my refrigerator. Yes, my voice was steady. I can do it. Good. Because we get one shot. If they suspect anything, they'll disappear. Your sister will flee. Derek will destroy evidence, and will never prove what they did. What else do we need? Documentation, emails, texts, financial records. He looked at me. Do you have access to Derek's computer? I hesitated. His laptop, at home, I know his password. Then that's where we start. We need evidence of communication between Derek and your sister, between Derek and Hoffman, financial records showing the theft. Cameron checked his watch. It's almost 4. Derek leaves at 6. Can you get into his laptop before he wakes? The apartment was silent except for the radiator and distant traffic. The sun still hadn't risen, but the sky was lighter now. I can do it, I said. Cameron's expression softened. Your daughter is incredibly brave. She is. My voice caught. And she deserves justice. My father deserves justice. Then let's make sure they get it. Cameron walked me to the door. Go home, access that laptop, forward everything to my secure email, then play your part. I looked at Whitney, who nodded, then back at Cameron. What happens Friday? Friday, we end this. His voice was hard. All of it. The office door clicked shut behind me at 4:30 in the morning, the sound too loud in the absolute darkness. Derek's laptop sat on his desk, closed, innocent looking. Through the window, the city was still black, no hint of dawn yet. My hands were shaking so badly I had to press them flat against the desk to steady them. You've got this, Whitney whispered beside me. She'd insisted on coming back with me from Cameron's, and now I was grateful. I couldn't do this alone. I opened the laptop. The screen glowed to life, the only light in the room. Password prompt waiting. My fingers hovered over the keys. What's the password? Whitney asked. 10/20/18. I typed it in. Chloe's birthday, October 2018. The irony burned like acid. He'd used our daughter's birthday, the daughter whose silence he'd caused, whose voice he'd stolen to protect his secrets. The desktop loaded. Whitney pulled out her phone, ready to photograph everything. My phone buzzed, Cameron texting start with email. Search Celeste first, then Hoffman. I opened Derek's email client. Typed Celeste into the search bar. 417 results. My vision blurred. 400 emails. Over how long I clicked on the first one, dated March 2021, nearly 4 years ago. Derek. You're even more beautiful than I remembered. Last night reminded me why I fell for you all those years ago. We should have ended up together. Maybe it's not too late. CI scrolled to the next. April 2021. Last night was incredible. When can we meet again? Tell Marley you have another site visit in Portland. I'll book the hotel. My stomach turned. I kept scrolling Whitney, photographing each email over my shoulder. We need money, Derek. Your investments are failing. My real estate commissions aren't enough. We need something bigger. November 2021. The desperation was starting to show. What if William, he's sitting on millions, and with his heart condition, it wouldn't be suspicious. Think about it. December 2021. My breath caught in my throat. I've been researching. There are substances that could trigger a cardiac event. Untraceable, natural looking. Derek, we could be free. Truly free. January 2022. I have what we need. It'll look natural. Just like a heart attack. No one will question it. And then, February 12th, 2022. The day after my father died. It's done. He's gone. By the time the estate settles, we'll be $3 million richer, one step closer to our future together. I couldn't breathe. The words swam in front of me. He's gone. Clinical. Casual. Like they were discussing a business transaction, not my father's murder. Marley. Whitney's hand was on my shoulder. Keep going. We need all of it. I forced myself to continue. More emails. Planning how to access the trust. Growing frustration that I wouldn't sign the papers. References to making me more cooperative. To making me unable to refuse. And then more recently, after Marley's gone, we'll finally be together. No more sneaking around. No more pretending. Just you and me and $4 million. After I was gone. Not after I signed the papers. After I was gone. They'd never planned to let me survive this. Search Hoffman, Whitney said quietly. I typed the name. 32 results. I opened the most recent dated 2 days ago. Derek emergency power of attorney documents prepared as requested. Standard fee plus $50,000 retainer for expedited processing and discretion. Friday 10 a.m. My office. Bring the necessary signatures and I'll handle the wire transfer to your account same day. LH, $50,000. I checked our joint account transaction history. There it was. A check written to LH Consulting for $50,000 dated last week. From our money. From the life insurance payout that was supposed to be Chloe's college fund. I opened another email from Hoffman. Reminder, bring both original signatures and the forged documents. I'll need to verify the forgeries match before I file. Once the transfer is complete, I suggest you and your associate leave the country immediately. I recommend somewhere without extradition. Jesus. Whitney breathed. He knew they were forged. He was helping them commit fraud. I clicked back to Derek's sent folder. Found his response. Celeste has been practicing Marley's signature for months. They're perfect. And don't worry. By Friday morning, Marley will be too sick to question anything. By Friday night, we'll be on a plane. My vision tunneled. The room spun. Marley, look at this. Whitney had taken control of the mouse opening Derek's browser history. Oh my God. The search history was damning. How to make someone appear mentally unstable, medications that cause severe incapacitation, substances that cause emergency hospitalization, average hospital stay, for severe gastric distress countries with no U.S. extradition treaty, penalty for forging legal documents, Washington State. He'd researched the consequences and done it anyway. Whitney kept clicking opening folders, property docs. She read aloud, opened it. Inside scanned images of legal documents, estate transfer forms, power of attorney paperwork, all with my signature at the bottom. Signatures I'd never written. These are the forgeries, I whispered. But there was more. Another subfolder, practice. Whitney opened it. Pages and pages of my signature practiced over and over. Different pens, different pressure, getting closer and closer to accurate with each attempt. And at the bottom of each practice sheet in the corner, small but visible Celeste's initials. My sister had spent months learning to forge my signature, practicing in her own hand, perfecting the loops and curves, preparing to steal everything my father had left us. Whitney was taking photos of everything her phone camera clicking rapid fire. My own phone buzzed again. Cameron, forward everything to my secure email. Now. I started forwarding. Every email, every document, every piece of evidence of their conspiracy, their affair, their murder plot. Whitney pulled out her laptop, uploading everything to a cloud account. Bank records, Cameron texted. I need to see where the money went. I opened our joint account, pulling up 3 years of transaction history. The pattern was devastatingly clear. February 2022, $1,487,650. 23 Dad's life insurance. Then month by month, it drained. Withdrawals to online gambling sites, $298, 432. Wire transfers to failed real estate ventures, $387, $650. Cash withdrawals, always in amounts under $10,000 to avoid reporting $412,000, current balance $387,442.68, over $1 million gone. Gambled away, invested poorly spent on hotels and gifts, and the lifestyle of a man living a double life. I checked my phone, 6:48 a.m. The bedroom was still silent down the hall. We had time. I kept searching through files, through documents, building the case that would destroy my husband and my sister. At 6:50, the bedroom door opened. I froze. Whitney's eyes went wide. The bathroom door closed. The shower started running. "Close everything," Whitney breathed. "Quickly." "Done." My hands were shaking as I closed windows, cleared the history of what we'd accessed, put the laptop exactly where it had been. Whitney shut down her laptop and shoved it in her bag. We slipped out of the office just as the shower shut off, made it to the kitchen where I fumbled with the coffee maker, trying to look like I'd just woken up. Derek appeared in the doorway at 7:10, hair damp, wearing a t-shirt and pajama pants. He looked surprised to see me. "Morning," he said. "You're up early." I forced a smile. Couldn't sleep. Thought I'd make coffee. He crossed to me, kissed my forehead. His lips on my skin made me want to vomit. "You okay? You look pale." "Just tired." I handed him a mug. "Big trip today, right?" "Yeah." He took a sip, checking his phone. "I need to finish packing and get going soon. Traffic to Portland's always bad." "I'll make you breakfast," I heard myself say. "You should eat before you go. You're the best." He smiled, that same smile that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made my stomach turn. "Let me throw on some real clothes first." "Be right back." He disappeared down the hallway. I gripped the counter legs, shaking. Whitney emerged from where she'd been hiding in Chloe's room. "You're doing great," she whispered. "Just a little longer." Just a little longer, then the real performance would begin. I cracked eggs into the pan at 7:30, watching them sizzle in butter. My hands were steady. Somehow impossibly, my hands were steady. Inside, I was screaming. Derek came back down the hallway dressed in khakis and a polo shirt, his Portland uniform the outfit he wore when he wanted to look professional but approachable. How many times had he worn that outfit to meet Celeste? How many business trips had actually been hotel rooms? "Smells good," he said, sliding into his chair at our little kitchen table. The same table where we'd eaten thousands of meals, where my father had sat just 3 years ago drinking the water Derek had brought him. I plated the eggs, added toast, poured more coffee, sat across from him, and forced myself to take a bite. "Big day," Derek said, scrolling through his phone. "This development deal could really set us up for years." Us. There was no us. Maybe there never had been. "That's great," I managed. "What kind of development? Commercial property, mixed use. The investors are cautious, but if I can close this..." He smiled, and once upon a time that smile would have made me happy. Now it just made me want to vomit. Could mean a big commission. We could finally take that trip to Hawaii you've been wanting. Hawaii, with me. Or with Celeste after I was gone. "When will you be back?" I asked, keeping my voice light. Saturday night, meeting Friday morning, site visit Friday afternoon. Every word a lie. Friday morning, Hoffman's office. Friday afternoon, wire transfer. Friday night plane to somewhere without extradition. "I'll call you when I get there. And don't forget." Here it comes. "Drink that tea tonight, okay? You've been so stressed with work. It'll help you sleep." I looked at him across the table. My husband of 7 years. The father of my daughter. The man who'd murdered my father and was planning to murder me. He looked so concerned. So caring. "You're so thoughtful," I said, and the words were ash in my mouth. "I'll drink it before bed." "Good." He reached across the table, squeezed my hand. His palm was warm. "I worry about you, you know. You work too hard. I worry about you." While planning to poison me, while forging my signature, while stealing everything my father had left us. How had I missed this 6 years of an affair right under my nose? The signs had been there. The working late nights that became more and more frequent. Derek coming home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine, but when I mentioned it, he'd say it was from a client hug, a colleague's goodbye. I'd believed him. The way he'd started avoiding conversations about money. Don't worry about it, I've got it handled. I'd trusted him with our finances. After all, he was the real estate expert. Meanwhile, he'd been gambling away $1 million. The phone calls he'd take in other rooms. Just work stuff boring. How many of those had been Celeste? And Celeste herself, my sister, who'd started dropping by more often. I was in the neighborhood, always when I was at work, always when Derek was home. I'd thought she was being thoughtful, checking on Derek and Chloe. She was sleeping with my husband. Earth to Marley. Derek was looking at me with concern. You okay? You zoned out. Sorry. I shook my head, forcing a smile. Just tired. Didn't sleep well. That's why the tea will help. He stood carrying his plate to the sink. I should get going. Traffic's going to be hell. It was 8:15. I followed him to the door where his overnight bag waited. He pulled me into a hug, kissed my forehead. His lips on my skin made every nerve-ending scream. Love you, babe. I'll call when I land. I made myself say it. Made myself force out the 3 hardest words I'd ever spoken. Love you too. Drive safe. He smiled that same smile I'd fallen in love with in college, when he'd been charming and attentive, and I'd thought I was the luckiest girl alive and walked out the door. I watched through the window as he loaded his bag into his car, watched as he backed out of his parking spot, watched until his car disappeared around the corner. Then my legs gave out. I slid down the wall, hitting the floor hard. My whole body was shaking. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't... Hey, it's okay. Whitney was there pulling me up, wrapping her arms around me. I hadn't even heard her come out of Chloe's room. You did it. He believed every word. You were perfect. I told him I loved him. I choked out. I looked at the man who killed my father and told him I loved him. You did what you had to do. Whitney held me tighter. Phase 1 complete. Now we move to Phase 2. My phone rang. Cameron. Miss Collins. His voice was brisk, professional. Derek's phone just pinged heading south on I-5. Portland PD is ready. Hoffman's cooperating. We offered him immunity in exchange for testimony. He'll be wearing a wire Friday morning. Hoffman's helping. I pulled away from Whitney, wiping my eyes. He doesn't want to go to prison for conspiracy to commit fraud. Smart choice on his part. I could hear papers shuffling. Now, at 4 p.m. today, you need to start texting Derek. Tell him you're not feeling well. Stomach ache, nausea. Make it convincing, but not too dramatic yet. We want him thinking the tea is starting to work, but slowly enough that you drank it last night like he asked. Okay. I checked my phone 9:07 a.m., almost 7 hours to prepare. By tonight, escalate. Tell him you're getting worse. By tomorrow morning, tell him you might need to go to the hospital. Keep him updated, keep him confident. Can you do that? Could I? Could I lie to Derek for 36 more hours while he thought he was slowly poisoning me? I thought about Chloe silent for 3 years to protect me. I thought about my father trusting Derek with a glass of water in his final moments. Yes, I said. I can do that. Good. I'll check in tonight. And Miss Collins, you're doing the right thing. The line went dead. Whitney was already pulling out her laptop. We should document everything. Timeline evidence witnesses. Build the case. I need to take Chloe to Dr. Wells first, I said. She needs to give her official testimony on video. At 1 p.m., we sat in Dr. Sharon Wells' office in Fremont. Chloe knew Dr. Wells. She'd been our therapist for the past 3 years trying to understand Chloe's mutism. Now she understood. The camera was set up in the corner. Legal requirement for child testimony. Doctor. Wells had explained the process, age-appropriate questions, no leading, no pressure, just Chloe's story in her own words. I watched through the one-way glass as Chloe sat in the familiar chair, her favorite stuffed rabbit in her lap. Dr. Wells sat across from her, calm and patient. Chloe, can you tell me about the night you stopped talking? And Chloe did. In that small, scratchy voice that still sounded like a miracle, she told the whole story. The phone call. The name Celeste. Grandpa's death. Her 3 years of silence believing it would keep me safe. I watched through the glass tears streaming down my face as my 6-year-old daughter recounted the most traumatic experience of her life, with a courage I didn't know existed. "Why did you decide to talk again?" Dr. Wells asked gently. "Because I heard Daddy on the phone again." Chloe's voice was steady. "He was talking about the tea, about making Mommy sick, and I couldn't let him hurt her, even if it meant he knew I'd heard, even if..." Her voice cracked. "Even if he hurt me." Dr. Wells reached over, squeezed Chloe's hand. "You're incredibly brave, Chloe. Do you know that..." Chloe nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I just wanted Mommy to be safe." The session ended at 3 o'clock. I met Chloe in the hallway, pulled her into my arms. She was shaking. "Did I do okay, Mommy?" "You did perfectly, baby. So perfectly." I kissed the top of her head. "Let's go home. You must be exhausted." By 3:30, Chloe was asleep in her bed, finally sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone. 3:58 p.m. 2 minutes. I thought about Derek, probably almost to Portland by now, confident, pleased with himself, thinking his plan was working perfectly. Thinking by tomorrow night I'd be in the hospital, helpless, ready to sign anything. Thinking that by Saturday he and Celeste would be $4 million richer. I opened my text thread with Derek. 4 o'clock p.m., time to perform. The text thread with Derek was open, cursor blinking. One message. That's all it would take to set this in motion. I typed, "Hey babe, not feeling great. Stomach hurts pretty bad. I drank some of your tea at lunch, but I'm feeling worse, not better." A lie. I hadn't touched the tea. It was still in the thermos in the fridge, labeled evidence waiting. I hit send. 3 dots appeared immediately. He was typing. My heart hammered against my ribs. Derek? Oh no. That's weird. Maybe food poisoning, you should rest. A heart emoji. I stared at those words. At that heart. He was excited. I could feel it through the screen in the speed of his response and the casual suggestion. That's weird. Not concerned. Eager. Thinking his plan was working. Whitney leaned over my shoulder, reading. "He's thrilled," she said quietly. "Look at that response time. He was waiting for this." My phone was on the coffee table, but her laptop was open beside it. Cameron had gotten a warrant for Derek's phone records, and Whitney had discovered something even better. Derek's iPad was still synced to our home Wi-Fi. He'd forgotten to disable it when he left. Every message he sent we could see. At 4:35, my phone lit up with a screenshot from Whitney. Derek's messages to someone else, to Celeste. Derek. She drank it, starting to show symptoms. Celeste perfect. On schedule. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Derek can't wait to be done with her. Done with her. Done with me. I was reading my own death sentence written by my husband to my sister, and they were celebrating. Marley. Whitney's hand was on my arm. "You okay?" "No." My voice came out flat. "But I will be. After tomorrow." At 6 p.m., I sent the second message. Much worse now. Been throwing up all afternoon. Called in sick for tomorrow. Derek responded within minutes. "Should you go to the ER, I can come back if you need me." The exclamation point. The false urgency. If I said yes, would he actually come back? Or would he make an excuse? Keep driving toward Portland, toward Hoffman's office, toward $4 million. I typed back, "No. Don't ruin your business trip. Whitney's coming over to check on me. Just need rest. Derek, okay. Keep me posted. Feel better." Another heart. Another lie. Whitney was watching the iPad. He just texted Celeste again. "She's getting worse. Exactly like we planned." She looked up at me. "They're so confident they think they've won." "Greed makes people stupid," I said. My phone rang at 8 o'clock p.m. Celeste. Mobile. I stared at the screen. My sister. My older sister who'd braided my hair when I was little, who'd taught me to drive, who'd held my hand at our mother's funeral, who'd been sleeping with my husband for 4 years, who'd helped murder our father. "Answer it," Whitney said. "Weak voice, you're sick." I swiped to accept. Hello. My voice came out thin, trembling, not entirely acting. Hey, little sis. Celeste's voice was warm, concerned. Fake. Everything about her was fake. Derek texted me that you're not feeling well. Yeah. I coughed weakly. Stomach's killing me. Been throwing up for hours. Oh no, do you think it's food poisoning? What did you eat today? A test. She was testing me, trying to figure out if I suspected anything. I don't know. I let my voice waver. Maybe that tea Derek made, but that's probably just a coincidence. Silence. Just for a second. Just long enough for me to feel her processing, calculating, deciding how to respond. Tea can be tricky, she finally said, voice careful. Herbal blends don't agree with everyone. Sometimes they can upset your stomach. Yeah, probably just bad luck. I coughed again. I'm sure it's nothing. Of course. Was that relief in her voice? Well, rest up, okay? Let me know if you need anything. Love you. Love you too, Celeste. The words tasted like poison. The line went dead. I looked at Whitney. She was worried. Just for a second when I mentioned the tea. She was worried I knew something. But you backed off. Whitney was already checking the iPad. And look, Derek just texted her. The message appeared on her screen. Celeste said you mentioned the tea. My phone buzzed. The same message to me. I typed back immediately, just trying to figure out what made me sick. Pretty sure it's not the tea, probably that sushi I had for lunch yesterday. Sorry, didn't mean to worry you. Derek. Okay, good. Rest up. Whitney shook her head. They're rattled. Not enough to stop, but enough to second guess. That's what we want. I stood up, pacing. Keep them nervous but confident. Make them think they're still in control. At 8:30, I sent the final message of the night. Whitney's taking me to urgent care. Really bad. We'll update you later, Derek. Oh no, let me know what they say. Do you need me to come back? I could picture him in his Portland hotel room, phone in hand, practically vibrating with barely contained excitement, thinking this is it. This is working. By tomorrow night, I'll be $4 million richer and free. No need. I'll text you when I know more. Don't worry. But I didn't text again. Let him wonder. Let him and Celeste stay up all night checking their phones, waiting for updates, trying to figure out if their plan was working or if I suspected something. Let them be nervous. At 10 o'clock p.m., Cameron called. Portland PD has Hoffman's building under surveillance, he said without preamble. Detectives Sanchez and Park are flying down tonight. They'll be my eyes and ears in the room tomorrow. Hoffman's agreed to wear a wire. We'll have everything on tape, the forged documents, the wire transfer attempt, everything. And Derek, his phone pinged at a hotel 6 blocks from Hoffman's office. He's staying put. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., he and your sister are walking into a trap. I closed my eyes. What if something goes wrong? Nothing's going to go wrong. We have every angle covered. You've done your part perfectly. Now all you have to do is wait. Wait. As if that were easy. I hung up and looked at Whitney, who was packing up her laptop. You should try to sleep, she said. I can't. I stared out the window at the dark Seattle skyline. Tomorrow morning, my husband and my sister are going to walk into that office thinking they're about to steal $4 million, thinking they've gotten away with murder, thinking I'm too sick to stop them. And instead, they're going to get arrested. Whitney squeezed my shoulder. Justice Marley, for your dad, for Chloe, for you. After she left, I checked on Chloe. She was sleeping peacefully, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. 3 years of silence, and now she slept like a normal 6-year-old, because she'd been brave enough to speak. Tomorrow I'd be brave enough to finish this. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling phone on the nightstand. Every few minutes I checked it. No messages from Derek, no calls from Celeste. They were probably doing the same thing. I was lying awake, unable to sleep, waiting for tomorrow. The difference was they thought they were waiting for their payday. I was waiting for their reckoning. Friday morning arrived with Seattle's signature gray drizzle, the kind of rain that wasn't quite rain, just moisture hanging in the air like it had nowhere else to be. I woke at 6 a.m., though I'd barely slept. The alarm was unnecessary. I'd been watching the clock since 4:30. I showered, letting the hot water burn away the exhaustion. Then I dressed carefully, navy blazer, white blouse, black pants. Professional, composed, armor. Today I would watch my marriage end. Chloe was still at Dr. Wells' house, a planned sleepover for therapeutic play, but really to keep her away from this. She didn't need to see what was about to happen. She'd been brave enough already. My phone buzzed. Derek, 6:04 a.m., hope you're feeling better. Call me when you're up. I stared at the message. Didn't respond. I was supposed to be too sick to answer, remember. Too incapacitated to question anything. Too weak to stop him. At 8 o'clock, Whitney picked me up. I'd tried to drive myself, but my hands were shaking too badly to hold the wheel. You ready for this? She asked as we merged onto I-5 heading downtown. No. I watched the rain streak across the passenger window. But I have to be. Cameron's office was in a high-rise near the courthouse, all glass and steel and expensive views of Elliott Bay. We took the elevator to the 12th floor where he met us at the conference room door. Everything's set up, he said. Portland PD is in position. Hoffman's wearing the wire. We're live in 30 minutes. The conference room had been transformed into a command center. 3 laptops were arranged on the long table, each showing a different feed. Screen 1 exterior security camera of Hoffman's building in Portland, 175 miles south. The entrance was visible along with the parking lot. Rain was falling there too. Screen 2, GPS tracking. 2 dots moving steadily south on I-5. Derek's phone, Celeste's phone. Screen 3, audio interface. Currently silent but connected to the wire Hoffman was wearing. In 25 minutes, we'd hear everything happening inside his office. Detective Maria Sanchez called in from Portland at 8:35. We're in position across the street, unmarked van. 4 officers plus me and Detective Park. When they enter the building, we wait for the confession, then we move. Understood, Cameron said. Ms. Collins is here with me. She'll be listening. Ma'am. Sanchez's voice softened. I'm sorry you have to go through this. Thank you, I managed. The line went dead. I sat in one of the conference room chairs staring at the screens. Whitney sat beside me, her hand finding mine. Cameron poured coffee that no one drank, and we waited. 8:40, 8:50, 900. 80 minutes stretched ahead of me like a lifetime. I couldn't sit still. I paced to the window watching the rain, then back to the screens. The GPS dots kept moving south, on schedule. They'll be there by 10, Cameron said, right on time. My mind kept drifting to other times, other moments I should have seen clearly but didn't. June 2018, my wedding day. Dad had walked me down the aisle, his hand tight on my arm. At the altar, I'd looked back at him, and his expression had been strange. Not quite smiling, not quite anything. The night before, he'd asked me, "Are you sure about Derek, sweetheart? Really sure?" Dad, give him a chance. I'd said, laughing it off, "You're being overprotective." But he hadn't been overprotective. He'd been right, and I hadn't listened. October 2018. Chloe's birth. Derek had been at the hospital, but distant. He'd held back when the nurses tried to hand her to him. "I'm not ready for this," he'd said quietly. I'd thought he meant fatherhood in general, the overwhelming responsibility of a newborn. Now I knew he'd meant her, specifically. He'd never wanted Chloe. She was an inconvenience, a complication, evidence of a marriage he was already planning to destroy. February 2022. Dad's death. Derek had been so supportive. He'd handled the funeral arrangements, dealt with the lawyer, held my hand while I cried. I'd leaned on him, completely grateful to have him, while he knew exactly what he'd done. How could I have been so blind, Marley? Cameron's voice pulled me back. It was 9:30. When they enter that building, we wait. Hoffman will get them talking about the forged documents, about the wire transfer, about you. We need their confession on tape. Once we have it, Portland PD moves in. You'll hear everything in real time. He paused, looking at me carefully. Are you sure you want to watch this? You don't have to be here. Yes, I do. My voice was steady. I need to see it. I need to know it's real. Because part of me still couldn't believe it. Part of me wanted to wake up and discover this was all some nightmare, that Derek actually loved me, that Celeste was actually my sister, that my father had died of natural causes. But I knew better now. At 9:45, my phone buzzed. "Derek, how are you feeling today?" I stared at the screen. Didn't respond. Another buzz. "I love you. Call me when you can." Lies. Every word lies. "They're 2 miles out," Cameron said, watching the GPS. "ETA 9 minutes. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it. Whitney squeezed my hand. "Breathe, Marley." I tried. Couldn't. At 9:50, the exterior camera showed a gray sedan pulling into Hoffman's parking lot. "That's Derek's rental," Cameron said. I watched the car park. Watched Derek step out, khakis polo shirt, confident stride. He looked normal. Happy even. Like a man on his way to close a business deal, not commit fraud and conspiracy. At 9:55, a white BMW pulled in beside him. Celeste. She stepped out of the car in designer sunglasses and a cream-colored coat, her dark hair perfect despite the rain. She walked like she owned the world. Confident. Beautiful. Successful. My sister. The woman I'd admired my whole life. The woman I'd wanted to be like. Walking into a building to steal my inheritance and destroy what was left of my family, Derek waited for her at the entrance. They didn't touch, didn't embrace too public, but I could see them talking. Celeste laughed at something he said. Then they disappeared through the glass doors. The audio feed crackled to life. Footsteps, a door opening. Hoffman's voice, smooth and professional. "Mr. Whitmore, Miss Collins. Right on time. Please come in." The video feed showed them entering Hoffman's conference room, modern, professional, with a large wooden table and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Portland. Derek and Celeste sat down side by side, confident, relaxed. Hoffman sat across from them, a manila folder in front of him. They looked like any other business meeting. Legal, legitimate, safe. They had no idea. Through the wire, I heard Hoffman's voice. "Thank you both for coming. Let's review the documents, shall we?" Papers rustled. I leaned closer to the screen, my hands gripping the edge of Cameron's conference table. "This is the power of attorney for Marley Collins, correct?" Hoffman asked. Derek's voice came through clear and confident. "Yes, my wife just experienced a medical emergency." I felt Whitney's hand find mine. I squeezed it so hard my knuckles went white. "She's currently hospitalized and incapacitated," Derek continued smoothly, "unable to manage her own affairs. As her husband, I need temporary authority over her assets." Every word was a lie. Every single word. I was sitting 75 miles north, perfectly healthy, listening to my husband fabricate an entire medical crisis. The ease with which he lied, the smoothness, the confidence made my skin crawl. This was the man I'd married, the man I'd trusted with everything. Hoffman's voice again. "And Ms. Collins, as co-trustee of your father's estate, you're authorizing the liquidation of all real property and investment accounts." Celeste spoke, and her voice dripped with fake concern. "Unfortunately, yes. My sister, she's not well." I could feel rage building in my chest, hot and sharp. "This is really for her own good," Celeste continued. "She can't make these decisions right now. We're protecting her." I almost laughed. Actually laughed. Protecting me. By trying to steal $4 million. By trying to incapacitate me. By planning to have me declared mentally incompetent. By murdering our father. I see. Hoffman was pushing papers across the table. Now I could hear them sliding on wood. And these signatures here. These are Miss Collins' signatures. A pause. Just a beat. Then Derek, "Yes. I personally witnessed her signing these documents. I'd never signed anything. Not one single page." Celeste. "I was there as well. She signed them. Both of them. Lying without hesitation. Without a flicker of conscience." Cameron was standing beside me now, watching the screen. Whitney's grip on my hand tightened. Hoffman's tone shifted just slightly, but enough to notice. Interesting, because I had a handwriting expert examine these documents. Silence. Complete, absolute silence on the audio feed. I leaned toward the screen, heart pounding. The expert concluded, Hoffman said slowly, that these signatures are forgeries. The silence stretched. On the video feed, I could see their faces change. Derek went pale, then red, his expression cycling from confusion to panic. Celeste's face stayed controlled, but her eyes were moving, scanning the room, looking for exits, calculating. Derek started to speak words, tumbling out. There must be some mistake. Those are legitimate signatures. Derek. Celeste's voice cut through sharp and hard. Shut up. But Derek kept going, voice rising. The expert is wrong. Marley signed those. I saw her. Derek, shut your mouth. Celeste's composure was cracking. I could hear it in her voice, panic beginning to seep through. The conference room door opened on the video feed. 2 people entered. Business attire. Badges clearly visible on their belts. Detective Maria Sanchez stepped forward, holding up her badge. Mr. Derek Whitmore, Miss Celeste Collins. Her partner, Detective James Park, moved to the other side of the table, blocking the door. You're both under arrest, Sanchez said. On screen, Derek's face went from red to white. Celeste didn't move, but I could see her jaw clench, her hands flatten on the table. Sanchez continued, her voice clear and authoritative. Derek Whitmore, Celeste Collins, you're being charged with conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to harm Marley Collins, and conspiracy in connection with the death of William Collins. Every charge, every single one. I heard them all sitting in Cameron's conference room, and something in my chest released. 3 years of questions, 3 years of wondering, 3 years of my daughter's silence, and now finally accountability. Derek's voice came through the wire, high and desperate. This is a mistake I can explain. There's been a misunderstanding. Derek, shut up. Celeste was on her feet now, but Park moved closer, one hand near his handcuffs. Don't say anything, we need a lawyer. But Derek kept babbling. Marley's sick. She's in the hospital. We were just trying to help. Mr. Whitmore, Park said calmly, you have the right to remain silent. I suggest you use it. Sanchez pulled out her handcuffs. We have substantial evidence. Email correspondence between the 2 of you discussing the poisoning of Marley Collins. Financial records showing embezzlement from William Collins' estate. Forensic analysis of the tea Derek Whitmore prepared. And we have a witness. Derek's head snapped up. What witness? There's no witness. No one saw. He stopped, realization washing over his face. Chloe. He breathed. Celeste's face went rigid. She's 6 years old. She was 3 when she overheard you planning William Collins' murder, Sanchez said. She's been silent for 3 years because she was terrified of you, but she found her voice, and she told us everything. I watched Derek crumble on screen. The polished mask was gone. The confident real estate developer was gone. What was left was a man who'd been caught, trapped with nowhere left to run. Celeste was still trying. We want a lawyer. We're not saying anything else. That's your right, Park said. He stepped forward with handcuffs. But I should tell you, we're about to show you something. Hoffman, who'd been sitting quietly this whole time, reached for his laptop. He turned it around, angling the screen toward Derek and Celeste. Someone wants to tell you something, he said. Cameron looked at me, nodded. This was it. The final piece. On Hoffman's laptop screen, an image appeared. A small room, a child-sized chair. And sitting in that chair, holding her stuffed rabbit, was Chloe. Her video testimony, recorded at Dr. Wells' office. Every word documented, every detail preserved. Derek's face went slack. Celeste closed her eyes, and Chloe's voice, small, clear, brave, began to speak. Chloe's face filled Hoffman's laptop screen, small, serious, holding her stuffed rabbit like armor. On the video feed from Portland, I could see Derek and Celeste staring at the monitor, frozen. Then Chloe's voice, recorded days ago in Dr. Wells' office, but clear as if she were in the room, began. My name is Chloe Whitmore. I'm 6 years old." Her voice was steady, strong, braver than any 6-year-old should have to be. I watched Derek's face on the video feed. All the blood drained from it, leaving him paper white. "I stopped talking when I was 3, Chloe continued. "I heard Daddy planning something bad." Derek's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Daddy was on the phone in his office. I went downstairs to get water. I heard him say, 'He'll be gone by morning.'" "No?" Derek whispered. The wire picked it up. "No, Chloe, no. Then Daddy said he loved Aunt Celeste." On screen, Celeste's face went rigid. "The next day, Grandpa died. Everyone said it was natural, but I heard Daddy's plan the night before." Tears were streaming down my face. Whitney's arm was around my shoulders, but I couldn't look away from the screen. Couldn't stop listening to my daughter's voice, the voice I'd waited 3 years to hear, telling the truth she'd carried alone for so long. "I stayed silent because I thought if I didn't talk, Daddy would forget I heard him," Chloe said. Her voice wavered slightly, and I could see her gripping her rabbit tighter on the video. "I thought if I was quiet, Mommy would be safe." "She was 3 years old," Derek said louder, now desperate. "She was 3, she couldn't understand what she was hearing." But Chloe kept speaking her recorded testimony unstoppable. "For 3 years, I didn't say a word, to protect my mother." I was crying openly now, Cameron's hand on my shoulder, Whitney holding my hand. 3 years. My baby had sentenced herself to 3 years of silence, believing it would save me. But then I heard Daddy planning to hurt Mommy again. Derek's face crumpled. He looked like he might vomit. I heard him on the phone. He said Mommy would go to the hospital. I heard about the thermos with the tea. I saw Daddy put something in it. "I couldn't be silent anymore," Chloe said, and her voice was stronger now. "I had to save Mommy. I had to tell the truth." The video ended. Chloe's face disappeared from the screen. Silence filled both rooms, Hoffman's office in Portland and Cameron's conference room in Seattle. Complete, absolute silence. Then Celeste's voice shattered it, sharp and vicious. "You're using a child against us. A 6-year-old, this is entrapment. This is illegal." Not remorseful, not horrified at what she'd done, just angry at being caught. Detective Sanchez stepped closer to her, and her voice was steel. She volunteered. She came forward herself, the bravest child I've ever met. A pause. Then quieter, but no less hard. "Your niece, your daughter." She looked at Derek. "And you terrorized her for 3 years." The metallic click of handcuffs echoed through the wire. Derek's voice rose, panicked and high. "Celeste, tell them. Tell them this was your idea." I watched Celeste's head snap toward him on the video feed. "What?" Her voice was deadly quiet. "It was her plan." Derek was speaking faster now, words tumbling over each other. "All of it. The tea, the forgeries, everything I just did what she told me to, betraying her immediately, completely. To save himself. You." Celeste's face contorted with rage. "You liar, you pathetic, cowardly, Mr. Whitmore." Detective Park interrupted calmly. "Would you like to make a statement about William Collins' death? Cooperation could help your situation." Yes, I'll tell you everything." Derek was crying now, actual tears running down his face. "It was Celeste's plan from the start. She researched the substances, she got whatever it was, she told me what to put in his water. I just did what she said. She planned everything." "Derek, shut your mouth," Celeste screamed. But Derek kept going. Words pouring out. "The life insurance, the trust fund killing William, it was all her idea. She said we'd be together, we'd be rich, we'd be free. I loved her. I did what she wanted." "You weak pathless." Celeste lunged toward him, but Sanchez and Park moved quickly, each taking one of them, pulling them apart. "Separate interview rooms," Sanchez said curtly. "Now." The video showed them being led in different directions. Derek was sobbing, stumbling, barely able to walk. Celeste's face was a mask of cold fury, but she was crying too, not tears of remorse, but of rage. The conference room door in Portland closed, then another. The wire went silent. The video feed showed an empty conference room, Hoffman sitting alone at the table gathering papers. Then the screen went black. It was over. Derek and Celeste were in custody, handcuffed, separated, already turning on each other, the conspiracy collapsing under its own weight. I sat in Cameron's conference room, Whitney's arm still around me. Cameron standing by the window, and I couldn't quite process it. 3 years of questions, 3 years of Chloe's silence, 3 years of living with a murderer and not knowing it. And now, in 15 minutes, it was done. They'll be formally charged within the hour, Cameron said quietly. Conspiracy to commit fraud, identity theft, attempted poisoning, and will add charges related to William's death pending the autopsy results. I looked up at him. The autopsy. I filed for an exhumation order yesterday. The judge approved it this morning. He turned from the window, his expression grave. Your father's body will be exhumed Monday morning. We'll have forensic toxicology done. If Celeste and Derek did what Chloe said, if they poisoned him, we'll find the evidence. Monday, 3 days away. My father's body would be exhumed, tested, examined. And if they found what I knew, they'd find Derek and Celeste wouldn't just be facing fraud and attempted poisoning, they'd be facing murder. Will Chloe have to testify? I asked. In court, I mean. In front of them. Cameron shook his head. Her video testimony will be admissible. She won't have to face them unless absolutely necessary. And given her age and the circumstances, I'll fight to keep her out of the courtroom. She's been through enough. I nodded, unable to speak. My throat was too tight. Ms. Collins. Cameron's voice was gentle. You did it. You protected your daughter. You got justice for your father. You survived. Survived. The word felt too small for what had happened, for what Chloe had endured, for what we'd both lost and found in the past 3 days. But it would do. Thank you, I whispered. Cameron nodded. Go home. Be with Chloe. Let us handle the rest. Whitney drove me back to Capitol Hill. Neither of us spoke. What was there to say? The rain had stopped and weak winter sunlight was breaking through the clouds. The city looked different somehow, cleaner, lighter, or maybe that was just me. When I got home, I picked up Chloe from Dr. Wells' house. She ran to me, wrapping her arms around my waist, and I held her like I'd never let go. Did it work, Mommy? She whispered against my shoulder. Did my words help? Yes, baby. I was crying again. Your words helped. You were so brave, so incredibly brave. Is Daddy going away? Yes, for a very long time. She nodded against me. Good. Now you're safe. Now you're safe. As if that had been her only concern all along. As if 3 years of silence were a small price to pay for my safety. I carried her inside, held her on the couch, and for the first time in 3 years, maybe longer, I felt like I could breathe. Still here, drop a 1 so I know you're ready for what comes next. Fair warning, this story weaves fiction with reality to teach real lessons. If you'd rather not continue, now's the time to close this chapter. They exhumed my father's body on a gray Tuesday morning, 1 week after Derek and Celeste's arrest. I wasn't allowed to be there, legal protocols Cameron had explained, but I felt it anyway deep in my bones. The earth opening. My father's casket rising back into daylight after 3 years of darkness. That week had been the longest of my life. I couldn't work. Couldn't focus on spreadsheets or data analysis or anything that required coherent thought. I'd taken emergency leave from Amazon, and they'd been understanding. Family crisis, I'd said. And it was true, even if the crisis was 3 years overdue. I couldn't sleep properly either. Every night I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering what the tests would show. Wondering if we'd been right. Wondering if the truth we'd suspected, the truth Chloe had carried for 3 years, would be proven in a laboratory. Chloe stayed home with me that week. She'd started therapy with Dr. Wells twice a week, play therapy mixed with talk therapy, helping her process 3 years of trauma. And she was talking, more each day. Small things at first. Can I have juice? I like this show. Then bigger things. I had a bad dream about Daddy. I miss Grandpa. But while Chloe was finding her voice, I was waiting for another voice. The voice of science, of proof, of undeniable truth. The exhumation meant everything. My father's body, buried for 3 years in Forest Lawn Cemetery, would be examined with technology that hadn't been used during his original autopsy. Advanced toxicology screening, tests for substances that wouldn't have been checked in a routine examination of an apparent heart attack. If Derek and Celeste had done what we suspected, what Chloe had testified to, what the emails suggested, we would finally know. Not just believe, know. Tuesday morning, my phone rang at 10:47 a.m. Cameron. "We have the results," he said without preamble. His voice was serious, careful. "Can you come to my office?" I knew before he said anything else. The tone in his voice, the weight of those words. They'd found something. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Whitney drove me downtown again. My hands were shaking too badly to hold the wheel, just like they had a week ago when we'd gone to watch the sting operation. But this felt different. This felt final. "Whatever it is," Whitney said quietly, "we'll handle it." I nodded, unable to speak. Cameron's office was on the 12th floor, the same conference room where we'd watched Derek and Celeste walk into their trap. But today, there was just Cameron sitting at the head of the table. A thick manila folder lay in front of him. Official Medical Examiner's Report, King County, Washington. He pushed it toward me as I sat down. Whitney took the seat beside me, her hand finding mine under the table. "I'll explain the findings," Cameron said gently. "You don't have to read it if you don't want to." "Tell me." My voice came out steadier than I felt. He opened the folder, revealing pages of technical language charts, chemical formulas. But Cameron translated it into words I could understand. Words that made my world tilt all over again. Advanced toxicology screening detected the presence of beta blockers in your father's tissue samples, specifically metoprolol and propranolol. Neither of these medications were prescribed to him. Beta blockers. I'd heard the term before, vaguely understood they were heart medications. But Dad hadn't taken them. He'd been on different medications, ACE inhibitors, blood thinners. I'd picked up his prescriptions myself. These beta blockers, Cameron continued, when combined with the medications your father was actually taking, create a dangerous interaction. They can cause severe hypotension, dangerously low blood pressure, irregular heartbeat, and ultimately cardiac arrest. "How much?" I asked. "How much did they give him?" "The concentrations found in the tissue are consistent with regular ingestion over a period of 2 to 3 weeks before his death. Not a single massive dose, but cumulative exposure, small amounts regularly administered. 2 to 3 weeks, slowly poisoning him, weakening his heart bit by bit until it finally gave out." I thought about those final weeks. Dad coming over for dinner, complaining that he felt weaker than usual. The dizzy spells he'd mentioned, how tired he always seemed. "Just getting old," he'd said with a rueful smile. 65 isn't what it used to be. His doctor had thought the same thing. Normal for his age, nothing concerning. Maybe adjust his medications a bit, get more rest. None of us had suspected. How could we? "The medical examiner has amended the cause of death," Cameron said quietly. "From natural causes to cardiac arrest due to drug interaction. The manner of death has been changed from natural to homicide." Homicide. The word hung in the air like a physical thing. My father hadn't died of a heart attack. He'd been murdered. Deliberately. Methodically. Over weeks, Derek had been poisoning him, tampering with his medication, weakening him, until his heart couldn't take it anymore. I felt everything at once. Pain sharp and fresh, like I was losing him all over again. Relief that we finally had proof that Chloe's testimony was vindicated. Rage that they'd done this to him, to us, and almost gotten away with it. And guilt. God, the guilt. Why hadn't I noticed? Why hadn't I seen that something was wrong? I'd been right there. I'd seen him getting weaker. I'd heard him complain. Why hadn't I pushed harder, demanded more tests, suspected something Marley? Cameron's hand was on my arm. "This isn't your fault. You couldn't have known. No one could have known. They were careful, calculated. They made it look natural. But I should have. No. His voice was firm. This is on them, only them. But now we have justice, scientific, undeniable proof. What does this mean? I asked. Legally. It means Derek Whitmore and Celeste Collins will be charged with first-degree murder in addition to the fraud and attempted poisoning charges. First degree because this was premeditated, planned over weeks, carefully executed. They face mandatory life sentences without the possibility of parole. Life sentences, never getting out, never walking free again. Is that enough? I whispered. To lock them away forever? Cameron met my eyes. Yes, they'll never get out, Marley, never. I'll make sure of it. That afternoon, I drove to Forest Lawn Cemetery. I hadn't been back since the funeral 3 years ago. It had been too painful, too raw. But now I needed to be there, needed to tell him. His grave was in the eastern section under a row of maple trees. The headstone was simple gray granite, William Collins. Beloved father, 1957 to 2022. The earth around his grave was disturbed fresh soil where they'd dug down and then filled it back in after the exhumation. They'd done their best to make it neat, but I could still see the difference. Still see where they'd opened the ground to retrieve my father's body to take the samples that would finally prove the truth. I knelt down, touching the cold stone. "We got them, Dad," I said quietly. The wind rustled through the maple trees above me, carrying away my words. Derek and Celeste, they're in jail. They're never getting out. A bird called somewhere nearby. The cemetery was otherwise silent. Chloe saved us, I continued. Your granddaughter. She was so brave, Dad. She heard them planning it. She knew what they'd done. And she was silent for 3 years because she thought it would keep me safe. My voice broke. She protected me the way you always protected me. I wish you could see her now. She's talking again. She's healing, and she's safe. The wind picked up, moving through the branches with a sound like whispers. For a moment, just a moment, it felt like an answer. Like my father was there listening, telling me it was okay. For the first time since he died, I felt something close to peace. Not because the pain was gone. It would never be gone. But because the truth was finally known. Because justice was coming. Because the people who'd killed him would answer for it. I stayed there for a long time, my hand on the cold granite, feeling the wind move around me. When I finally stood to leave, I looked back at the headstone one more time. I love you, Dad, and we won't let them forget what they did. Justice for my father was secured, scientific proof, undeniable evidence. Now came the legal consequences. Derek confessed in under 2 hours. Celeste held out for 4 days. In the end, they both told the truth. I watched it all from behind one-way glass, Cameron and Whitney on either side of me. The interrogation rooms were small, cold, sterile. 2 different rooms, 2 different stories that somehow told the same ugly truth. Derek broke first. Friday afternoon, still wearing the orange jumpsuit from his arrest that morning, hands cuffed to the metal table. Detective Park sat across from him, calm and patient. "Tell me about William Collins," Park said. Derek's face crumpled. The confident businessman I'd married was gone, replaced by something hollow and desperate. "I needed money," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The gambling debts, the failed investments. I was drowning. So you killed your father-in-law." Derek flinched at the word killed. "Celeste planned it. She researched everything. Beta blockers, dosages, how to make it look natural. I just switched his pills." My stomach turned. Just. As if it were nothing. "Walk me through it," Park said. Derek's confession spilled out like poison. November 2021. Celeste suggesting they needed money fast. December, the plan taking shape. January 2022. Celeste obtaining the beta blockers through a contact at a pharmaceutical company. Derek replacing Dad's heart medication with the poisoned bottles. 3 weeks, Derek said. He got weaker every day. Complained about being tired, dizzy. We told him it was stress, that he should rest. I watched through the glass, tears streaming down my face. 3 weeks. We'd all watched my father die slowly, and Derek had sat at our dinner table pretending to care. February 11th, I gave him the final dose, higher concentration. The next morning, he had the heart attack. And the life insurance, $3 million, split between me and Celeste. What about your wife? What about Marley? Derek's eyes filled with tears. That was Celeste's idea, too. She wanted everything, the full inheritance. The plan was to make Marley look mentally unstable, get her committed or declared incompetent, gain custody of Chloe, and control the estate. The tea on Wednesday night, midazolam and a heavy laxative. She'd be hospitalized for 48 to 72 hours. We'd claim she was having a breakdown. Friday morning, we'd meet with the lawyer in Portland, forge her signature, and transfer the assets. Park leaned forward. Did you know your daughter overheard you planning William's murder? Derek's face went white. No, I swear I didn't know. If I'd known Chloe heard... He broke down completely. She was 3 years old. 3. And she stayed silent for 3 years. Because of me. I turned away from the glass. I couldn't watch anymore. 4 days later, Celeste's interrogation. She'd refused to speak until her lawyer advised her that cooperation might reduce her sentence. Detective Sanchez conducted this one, a woman with ice in her veins and no patience for lies. Celeste sat perfectly straight, her expression cold and controlled, even in the orange jumpsuit. Tell me about your father's death, Sanchez said. It was business, Celeste said flatly. He was going to leave everything to Marley anyway. I just accelerated the timeline. Business. My father's murder was business to her. And your sister. Marley's always been weak, trusting, naive. I knew she'd never suspect Derek, and she certainly wouldn't suspect me. The casual cruelty in her voice made me sick. What about Chloe? Sanchez asked. For the first time, something flickered across Celeste's face. Not remorse, calculation. Collateral damage, she said. The child would have been fine. Children are resilient. She would have adjusted. Collateral damage. My daughter was collateral damage. You were willing to destroy a 3-year-old's sense of safety for money. $4 million, Celeste corrected. That's what the trust fund was worth, plus the real estate, the investments. We're talking about generational wealth. Sanchez stared at her. You murdered your father. You tried to harm your sister. You traumatized your niece. For money. For freedom, Celeste said. Derek was suffocating in debt. I was tired of living in my little sister's shadow. This was supposed to be our chance. How do you feel about your sister now? Celeste's smile was thin and bitter. Marley always gets what she wants in the end, doesn't she? The perfect life, the perfect daughter, everyone's sympathy. Even now, she's the victim everyone rallies around. I stood up behind the glass, unable to listen anymore. This woman, my sister, my blood, was a stranger, a monster wearing a familiar face. Cameron met me outside the observation room. Full confessions, he said quietly. Both of them. Recorded, witnessed, legally binding. What happens now? Sentencing. 3 weeks. They'll both get life. Whitney appeared beside me, her hand on my shoulder. Let's go home, Mar. Chloe's waiting. I nodded, but I turned back one last time toward the interrogation rooms where Derek and Celeste sat in separate cells, their futures reduced to orange jumpsuits and concrete walls. They'd tried to take everything from me, my father, my safety, my daughter's voice, but we'd taken something from them too, their freedom, forever. 3 weeks after the arrests, I walked into King County Superior Court with Whitney beside me and my heart pounding in my chest. Ready? Whitney asked quietly. No, I admitted, but let's do this. The courtroom was solemn and imposing. High ceilings, polished wood, the seal of Washington State mounted behind the judge's bench. I took my seat in the front row, the victim's family section. Reporters filled the back rows, notebooks ready. This case had drawn attention: murder, betrayal, a silent child witness. The elements of a perfect story, except it was my life. Derek entered first, escorted by 2 officers. He wore an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him. He'd lost weight in the past 3 weeks. His eyes found mine across the courtroom. He opened his mouth as if to speak. I looked away. Celeste came next, also in orange, her dark hair still perfectly styled, even in jail. She walked with her chin up, defiant. She didn't look at me at all. Judge Morrison entered, and we all stood. She was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Be seated," she said. "We're here for the sentencing of Derek Whitmore and Celeste Collins." Prosecutor Cameron Rhodes stood, his voice steady and clear. "Your Honor, the defendants have been charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in the death of William Collins, conspiracy to harm Marley Collins, fraud identity theft, and forgery of legal documents." He outlined the evidence methodically. Full confessions from both defendants, forensic analysis of the tea containing midazolam and laxatives, exhumation results showing beta blockers that caused William Collins' death, over 400 emails between Derek and Celeste documenting their affair and criminal plans, financial records showing the misappropriation of over $1 million, and Chloe's testimony, a 6-year-old child who'd witnessed a phone call at 3 years old and stayed silent for 3 years to protect her mother. "The people recommend life sentences without possibility of parole," Cameron concluded. Derek's lawyer stood next to a public defender who looked exhausted. "Your Honor, my client deeply regrets his actions. He was under financial pressure and made terrible choices. He's cooperated fully with authorities and shown genuine remorse. We ask the court for leniency." Celeste's lawyer, expensive, hired with money she no longer had, tried a different angle. "Ms. Collins was manipulated by Mr. Whitmore, who exploited her emotional vulnerability after her father's death. She's a first-time offender who made poor decisions under duress." Judge Morrison's expression didn't change. "Does the victim wish to make a statement?" I stood, my legs shaking. Cameron had asked if I wanted to do this. I'd said yes. I needed to. I walked to the front of the courtroom and stood at the podium facing the judge. I could feel Derek's and Celeste's eyes on my back. "Your Honor." I began, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. 3 years ago, these two people murdered my father. They poisoned him slowly over 3 weeks with beta blockers that caused his heart to fail. They made it look natural. They collected $3 million in life insurance. I took a breath. My daughter Chloe was 3 years old when she overheard Derek planning my father's death. She was so terrified that I would be next that she stopped speaking entirely. For 3 years, she stayed silent to protect me. She sacrificed her voice, her childhood, because she loved me and was afraid. My voice cracked, but I pushed forward. 3 weeks ago, Derek tried to poison me the same way he poisoned my father. His plan was to have me hospitalized, declared mentally incompetent, and stripped of my rights so he and Celeste could steal my inheritance and my daughter's trust fund. $4 million. That's what they thought I was worth. I looked directly at Judge Morrison. They didn't just try to kill my father and me. They stole 3 years of my daughter's voice. They stole her innocence. They stole her sense of safety in the world. I paused, choosing my next words carefully. "I'm not here for revenge, Your Honor. I'm here for justice. Justice for my father, who deserves to be remembered as the good man. He was not as a victim of greed. Justice for my daughter, who should never have had to carry that burden. And justice for every other family who might have been next if Chloe hadn't found the courage to speak." I stepped back. "Thank you, Your Honor." Judge Morrison nodded, her expression grave. She looked at Derek and Celeste, who sat motionless at the defense table. "I've reviewed the evidence in this case extensively," she said. "What I see is not a crime of passion or desperation. I see calculated cruelty. I see a betrayal of family bonds that should be sacred. I see 2 individuals who valued money more than human life." She turned to Derek. "Mr. Whitmore, you murdered your wife's father. You planned to harm your wife. You used your own daughter's silence as cover for your crimes. You are sentenced to life in prison plus 40 years. You will be eligible for parole after 40 years. Derek's head dropped. Judge Morrison turned to Celeste. Miss Collins, you murdered your own father. You betrayed your sister. You showed no remorse even when confronted with a child's testimony. You were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole plus 50 years on additional charges. Celeste's face went white, but she said nothing. This court is adjourned. The gavel fell. It was over. I walked out of the courtroom into the gray February afternoon, Whitney's arm around my shoulders. Rain was starting to fall, soft and cleansing. It's done, Whitney said quietly. It's done, I agreed. Justice had been served. Now we could finally begin to heal. The divorce papers arrived on a Thursday. I signed them in under 3 minutes. It was late March, 6 weeks since the sentencing, and Chloe was at school. First grade. She talked now. Had friends. Came home every day with stories about recess and reading groups and a boy named Lucas who always tried to steal her crayons. I sat alone at my kitchen table when the envelope arrived. Official seal from King County Family Court. Dissolution of marriage. I opened it with steady hands. Collins versus Whitmore. My maiden name versus his. Soon just Collins. For both of us. The grounds were simple conspiracy to harm the petitioner, currently serving a life sentence, abandonment of family, no possibility of reconciliation. Uncontested. Derek had signed everything from prison without argument. What choice did he have? The terms were all in my favor. Derek relinquished all parental rights to Chloe, forever no possibility of custody or visitation. A permanent restraining order prohibited any contact with either of us. No alimony since he was in prison with no assets. No property to divide since he'd gambled and spent it all away. I signed where indicated Marley Collins. My maiden name, reclaimed. The signature was decisive. No hesitation, no second thoughts. 3 minutes. 6 years of marriage ended with a single stroke of a pen. Attached to the divorce decree was another document, a court-approved name change petition for Chloe. Chloe Whitmore would become Chloe Collins. I'd asked her first, of course. Sat her down in her new purple bedroom and explained that she could choose to keep her name or change it to match mine. I want Grandpa's name, she'd said immediately. Not Daddy's. Are you sure? She'd nodded, serious and certain. Grandpa was brave. Daddy wasn't. 6 years old and already wiser than I'd been at 34. The financial documents were in the envelope too, a summary of the estate settlement. Celeste's half of Dad's inheritance had been forfeited under Washington's Slayer statute. You can't profit from the estate of someone you murdered. Her portion had been transferred entirely to me. The numbers were staggering: real estate portfolio, $2.8 million. The family home in Mercer Island, 2 rental properties in Bellevue, a small commercial building in downtown Seattle. All now solely under my control. Investment accounts, $1. $0.2 million, mostly recovered after Derek's gambling and failed ventures. Cameron's forensic accountants had traced and clawed back what they could. Remaining life insurance, $400,000. Derek's half had been used for legal fees and restitution. The rest was mine. Proceeds from the sale of Dad's consulting business, $980,000. Total approximately $5.2 million. It should have felt like a windfall. Instead, it felt tainted. Blood money bought with my father's life and nearly mine. But it was also Chloe's security. Her future. Dad's legacy used the way he would have wanted. I'd already made decisions. The old family home would be sold. Too many memories, too many ghosts. I couldn't walk through those rooms without seeing my father's last moments, Derek bringing him that glass of water. The rental properties would stay steady income for Chloe's future. I'd established an education trust for her, fully funded ironclad that no one could touch. The rest would be invested conservatively, not for luxury, but for security, for the knowledge that Chloe and I would be safe, stable, protected. And I'd bought a new house, a modern townhouse in Queen Anne, a completely different neighborhood. Clean lines, big windows, no history. Chloe's room had purple walls, her choice, and bookshelves covering one entire wall. There was a reading nook by the window where she curled up every night with a stack of picture books, sounding out words in that clear, brave voice I'd waited 3 years to hear. No memories of Derek there. No echoes of the life we'd pretended to have. A fresh start in every sense. I looked down at the signed divorce papers. Marley Collins. Not Whitmore anymore. Collins again. But not the same Marley who'd married Derek Whitmore 7 years ago, young and naive and trusting. This Marley was different, stronger, wiser. More cautious, maybe too cautious, but I'd rather be overcautious than dead. But also more grateful for real things, real love, real family, real safety. Whitney, who'd driven me everywhere when I couldn't hold the wheel. Cameron, who'd built the case that brought them down. Dr. Wells, who'd helped Chloe find her voice again. The small circle of people I could actually trust. And Chloe. God, Chloe. My brave, brilliant daughter who'd sacrificed her voice to save my life. I sealed the envelope, ready to mail it back to the court. Official. Final. Done. One chapter closed. Another just beginning. Outside, I heard a sound that made me look up. A voice. Clear and high and joyful. Mommy! I went to the window. Chloe was running up the sidewalk from the school bus stop, her backpack bouncing, her dark hair flying. She was calling for me, waving, her face lit up with whatever story she was bursting to tell. Her voice. After 3 years of silence, her voice was the most beautiful sound in the world. I opened the door and she flew into my arms, talking a mile a minute about Lucas and crayons and how her teacher said she was the best reader in the class and could she please have a snack because she was starving. Of course, baby, I said, holding her tight. Let's get you fed. We walked inside together into our new house, our new life, our new beginning, and I closed the door on everything that had come before. Dr. Wells said recovery would take time. She was right. But watching my daughter find her voice again, watching Chloe learn to speak after 3 years of silence, was worth every single second. I stood behind the one-way glass in Dr. Sharon Wells' office watching my 6-year-old daughter sit on a small purple sofa, clutching a worn teddy bear. This was our 11th session. 11 Tuesdays of driving to this quiet building in Bellevue. 11 afternoons of standing behind this glass. 11 hours of hoping my daughter could heal. Doctor. Wells sat across from Chloe, gentle and patient. Her voice was soft, never pushing. Chloe, can you tell me why you stayed silent for so long? Chloe looked down at the teddy bear, her small fingers tracing its worn ear. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. If I talked, Daddy would remember I heard him. And then he'd hurt Mommy like he hurt Grandpa. My hand pressed against the glass. 3 years. My daughter had sacrificed her voice for 3 years to protect me. Dr. Wells nodded slowly. That must have been very hard. It was. Chloe's voice was stronger now, but Mommy's safe now, so it was worth it. Behind the glass, I cried, not from sadness, from pride. My brave, beautiful girl. April mornings in our Queen Anne townhouse were different now. Chloe talked constantly about books about school, about the world she'd been silently observing for 3 years. Mom, did you know octopuses have 3 hearts? She asked one morning over breakfast, her spoon paused midair above her cereal bowl. I smiled. I didn't know that. How does that work? 2 hearts pump blood to the gills and 1 pumps it to the body. Isn't that cool? Very cool, I said, watching her eyes light up. Where did you learn that school library? Miss Carter showed me a book about ocean animals. Every conversation was a gift. Every question was proof that she was healing, growing, becoming the child she'd been forced to hide. Mercer Island Elementary was a fresh start. New school, new friends, new beginning. The first day Chloe raised her hand in class, her teacher, Mrs. Anderson, nearly dropped her marker. Chloe, Mrs. Anderson said, surprised, you have something to share. Chloe nodded, standing beside her desk. The answer is 12, because 4 times 3 equals 12. Mrs. Anderson's eyes filled with tears. She'd been warned about Chloe's history, about the silence, about the trauma. But here was this little girl participating like any other first grader. By the end of April, Chloe had 2 best friends, Emma, who loved to draw, and Sophie, who shared Chloe's fascination with science. They sat together at lunch, traded books at recess, and planned weekend playdates. When I picked Chloe up from school one afternoon, Emma's mother pulled me aside. "Emma says Chloe is the smartest kid in class," she said, smiling. "She's reading at a second-grade level already." I thanked her, my heart swelling. 3 years of observation had turned my daughter into a sponge for knowledge. Now that she could speak, she was sharing everything she'd learned. Weekends became our time. We baked chocolate chip cookies, Chloe carefully measuring flour and sugar, narrating every step. We rode bikes through Volunteer Park, Chloe, pointing out birds and asking their names. We had movie nights, and Chloe analyzed every plot twist, every character motivation. "Why did the princess trust the witch?" she asked one Friday night, curled up beside me on the couch. "Maybe she didn't know the witch was bad," I said. Chloe frowned. "But there were signs. The witch lied about her name. She avoided questions. She gave gifts that seemed too good." I looked at my daughter, stunned. She was 6 years old, and she was already analyzing deception better than most adults. "You're right," I said quietly. "There were signs." Chloe nodded. "Grandpa taught me that. He said to watch what people do, not just what they say." My father. Even after death, he was still teaching his granddaughter. Whitney visited every Tuesday after therapy. She'd officially become Aunt Whitney in Chloe's eyes, and she embraced the role completely. She took Chloe to the Seattle Aquarium, to the Pacific Science Center, to Woodland Park Zoo. She bought books, puzzles, and art supplies. One evening, Chloe brought me a drawing. It was her school assignment, My Family. In the picture, there were 4 people. Chloe stood in the center, holding hands with me on one side and Whitney on the other. Behind us, sketched in lighter pencil, was Grandpa watching over us like a guardian angel. Derek wasn't in the picture. "Where's your dad?" I asked, gently, needing to know how she felt. Chloe looked at me, her expression calm. "He's not family anymore, Mom. Family doesn't hurt people they love." Recovery wasn't linear. Some mornings, Chloe woke up silent again, the weight of memory pressing down. Some nights, she had nightmares about Derek, about the phone calls, about the tea. On those nights, I held her until the tears stopped, until her breathing steadied, until she fell back asleep in my arms. Dr. Wells said this was normal. Healing took time. Trauma didn't disappear overnight. But even on the hard days, there was progress. Chloe talked more than she stayed silent. She smiled more than she cried. She played more than she worried. At our most recent session, Dr. Wells asked Chloe a new question. "How do you feel now, Chloe?" Right now, in this moment. Chloe thought for a long time. Then she smiled. "Lighter," she said. "Like I can breathe again, like I don't have to carry a secret anymore." Behind the glass, I wiped my eyes. That was all I'd ever wanted for my daughter, to breathe freely, to live without fear, to be a child again. That night, as I tucked Chloe into her purple-walled bedroom, she looked up at me with those wise 6-year-old eyes. "Mom?" "Yes, sweetheart. I'm glad I told the truth, even though it was scary." I kissed her forehead. "I'm glad too, baby. You were so brave." Chloe smiled, her eyes already closing. "When I grow up, I want to help other kids who can't talk, like Dr. Wells helps me." My heart broke and healed at the same time. My daughter, who'd lost 3 years of her voice to protect me, wanted to spend her life giving voices back to others. "You'll be amazing at that," I whispered. Chloe's breathing slowed, deepened. She was asleep. I stood in the doorway watching her in the soft glow of her nightlight. 3 months ago, we'd been trapped in a nightmare. Now we were free. Recovery would take time, but we had all the time in the world. 6 months after my daughter spoke for the first time in 3 years, I woke up on a Saturday morning and realized something I'd thought impossible. I was happy. Not pretending, not performing. Actually, truly happy. I woke naturally, without an alarm, without nightmares pulling me from sleep. Sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains of my new bedroom, warm and golden. July in Seattle was beautiful, clear skies, gentle heat, the smell of summer flowers drifting through open windows. From downstairs, I heard a sound that still made my heart swell every single time. Chloe's voice, singing. She was singing some pop song from the radio, slightly off-key, completely unself-conscious. the sound of a 7-year-old who'd forgotten she'd ever been silent. I smiled before I even opened my eyes. I listened. I treasured it. I found Chloe standing on her step stool at the stove, carefully flipping chocolate chip pancakes. She wore her favorite purple pajamas and had flour on her nose. "Mom," she said, beaming when she saw me, "I'm making breakfast. I added extra chocolate chips. Is that okay?" "It's perfect," I said, walking over to kiss the top of her head. "You're doing great, sweetheart." She grinned, so proud of herself. This normalcy, this joy was what healing looked like. We ate together on the small deck behind our Queen Anne townhouse. The view stretched across the hill toward Elliott Bay, the morning sun glinting off the water. A warm breeze carried the scent of roses from the neighbor's garden. Chloe chattered nonstop about summer camp starting Monday, science and nature camp. She was learning about ecosystems, about food chains, about how everything in nature was connected. "Did you know mushrooms talk to trees through their roots?" she asked, syrup on her chin. "I didn't," I said, smiling. "How does that work?" "They share nutrients. It's called mycelium. Isn't that cool?" "Very cool." I watched her talk, animated and alive, and thought about how far we'd come. 6 months ago, our world had collapsed. Derek arrested. Celeste arrested. My father's murder revealed. Chloe's 3 years of silence explained. Everything we'd thought was real. Our family, our safety, our future had been a lie. But from that wreckage, we'd rebuilt. And this time, the foundation was real. I'd learned to trust my instincts. My father had tried to warn me about Derek. I should have listened. I'd learned to listen to silence. Chloe's silence had been screaming the truth for 3 years. I'd learned that family was a choice, not just blood. Whitney had proven that every single day. I'd learned that children were braver than adults. Chloe had sacrificed her voice to protect me. I'd learned that justice was possible if you fought for it. We'd fought, and we'd won. I still worked as a data analyst, but at a new company. Microsoft had offered me a position with better hours, better culture, and the flexibility to work from home when Chloe needed me. We were financially secure. Between the recovered assets, my father's estate, and my own salary, we didn't have to worry. My identity wasn't victim anymore. It was mother, survivor, woman who rebuilt her life. Chloe's progress had been remarkable. She talked constantly now, making up for lost time. Her first grade year had ended with excellent grades. She had friends, real friends, Emma and Sophie, who came over for playdates and sleepovers. Therapy continued, but only once a week now, down from 3 times. The nightmares were rare, maybe once a month. Mostly, she was just a kid who loved books and science and asking why about everything. At 9:30, the doorbell rang. Chloe shrieked with delight. "Aunt Whitney!" She ran to the door, throwing it open. Whitney stepped inside, grinning, arms full of coffee and pastries from our favorite bakery. "Morning, Collins ladies," Whitney said, ruffling Chloe's hair. This had become our Saturday ritual. Whitney came over, we had coffee on the deck, while Chloe played in the yard, and we talked about everything and nothing. Once Chloe was occupied with her books and art supplies, Whitney settled into the deck chair beside me, coffee in hand. "You look good, Mar," she said quietly. "Really good, genuinely happy." "I feel happy," I admitted. "Is that weird after everything?" "No," Whitney said firmly. "After everything you've been through, happiness is exactly what you deserve." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching Chloe draw at the small table. "Do you have any regrets?" Whitney asked. I thought about it, really thought. "Only that I didn't see it sooner," I said finally. "That I didn't protect my dad. That Chloe had to carry that burden for 3 years." Whitney reached over, squeezed my hand. "You can't change the past." "No," I agreed, "but I changed the future, and that's what matters." Chloe looked up from her drawing, her expression suddenly serious. "Mom, can we visit Grandpa today?" My chest tightened. "Of course, sweetheart. Why today?" "I want to tell him about camp," she said simply, "and that I got an A in reading, and that we're okay now." My eyes blurred with tears. Grandpa would love that baby. That afternoon, the 3 of us drove to Forest Lawn Cemetery, Whitney, Chloe, and me. 3 women who'd fought and survived and won. Chloe carried a bouquet of sunflowers, Grandpa's favorite. She knelt at his grave, arranging them carefully, and began to talk. She told him about school, about camp, about her friends. She told him she wasn't scared anymore. She told him thank you for teaching her to watch what people do, not just what they say. She told him we were safe. I stood behind her, Whitney beside me, and felt the weight of the past 6 months settle into something like peace. We'd lost so much. My father. 3 years of Chloe's childhood. The family I'd thought I had. But we'd gained something too. Truth, safety, each other. And in the warm July sun, with my daughter's voice carrying on the breeze, I realized something profound. This right here, right now, was everything I'd ever really wanted. Not the big house, not the perfect husband, not the polished life. Just this: love, safety, truth, peace, real, solid, mine. My father's gravestone looked different under the summer sun. Less sorrowful, more peaceful. We walked across the cemetery on a warm July afternoon, the grass green beneath our feet, the sky a brilliant blue overhead. It was nothing like the day we'd buried him, gray February, rain, cold wind, grief so heavy I could barely stand. Whitney walked a few steps behind us, giving Chloe and me space. Chloe held my hand tightly as we approached the familiar spot beneath the oak tree. William Collins, beloved father, 1957 to 2022. Fresh flowers sat in the granite vase I brought them every week. Today, Chloe carried sunflowers bright yellow and cheerful, Dad's favorite. Chloe let go of my hand and knelt beside the stone. Her small fingers traced the carved letters of his name, gentle and reverent, as if she could feel him through the cold marble. "Hi, Grandpa. It's me, Chloe." Her voice was soft but clear, carrying on the warm breeze. "I can talk now. Can you hear me?" She paused, as if waiting for an answer only she could hear. "I saved Mommy, just like you wanted." My throat tightened. I stood frozen, watching my daughter speak to the man who'd tried to warn me, who'd died trying to protect us. "I stayed quiet for a really long time," Chloe continued. "It was hard, really, really hard, but it kept Mommy safe." She adjusted the sunflowers in the vase, her movements careful and deliberate. "The bad people are gone forever now. They can't hurt us anymore. Daddy's in prison, Aunt Celeste too. They'll never get out." I pressed my hand to my mouth, tears streaming down my face. "I start science camp on Monday," Chloe said, her tone brightening. "We're learning about ecosystems and animals and how everything in nature is connected. I think you'd like that." She smiled at the stone as if my father were smiling back. "I got an A in reading, and I have new friends, Emma and Sophie. They're really nice." Chloe glanced back at me, then returned her attention to the grave. "Mommy smiles a lot now. She's not sad anymore. We're okay, Grandpa. We're really, really okay." She leaned forward, pressing her small hand flat against the stone. "Thank you for being brave. I learned from you." I couldn't hold back any longer. I knelt beside Chloe, my hand joining hers on the marble. "We got justice for you, Dad," I said, my voice breaking. "Finally, after everything." I closed my eyes, feeling the sun warm on my face, imagining my father standing there with us. The truth came out, all of it. The beta blockers, the poisoning, Derek and Celeste's plan. Everything. I looked at Chloe, who was watching me with those wise, knowing eyes. "Chloe did this. She's the one who saved us. She's incredible, Dad, strong, just like you." My voice cracked. I wish you could hear her voice. I wish you could see her now, talking, laughing, asking a million questions about everything. She's everything you hoped she'd be. I wiped my eyes. "Maybe you can see her, somehow. I hope you can." Chloe tugged on my sleeve. "Mommy is Grandpa in heaven." I looked down at her, at this brave little girl who'd sacrificed so much. "I believe he is, sweetheart." "Does he know we're okay?" I pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "I think he knows. I think he's always known." We sat there for a while, the three of us, me, Chloe, and the memory of my father. The grass was soft beneath us. The wind rustled through the oak leaves overhead. Birds sang in the distance. It was peaceful. Not the raw, tearing grief of those first months after his death, but something gentler, a blend of sadness and gratitude, loss and love. I thought about how my father had died protecting what belonged to us, how his truth had been uncovered through exhumation and forensic analysis, how justice had been served because of his sacrifice, how we were safe now because of him. His death hadn't been in vain, it never would be. Chloe stood and wandered a few feet away, picking wildflowers that grew near the edge of the path, tiny yellow and purple blooms, delicate and wild. She gathered them into a small bouquet and placed them carefully beside the sunflowers. "Love you, Grandpa," she said simply. Perfect, honest, true. I stood helping Chloe to her feet and took one last look at the gravestone. "We'll come back, Dad. We'll always come back." It wasn't goodbye. "Just see you later." Whitney stepped forward, her arm slipping around my shoulders. "He'd be so proud of you, you know," she said quietly. "I know." We walked back across the cemetery together, the three of us. Chloe skipped ahead, picking more flowers, humming to herself. The sound of her voice, so casual, so free, was still the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. As we reached the car, Chloe turned back toward the grave one last time, waving. "Bye, Grandpa. See you next time." I climbed into the driver's seat, Whitney beside me, Chloe buckling herself into the back. As I pulled out of the cemetery, I glanced in the rearview mirror. Chloe was looking out the window, watching the trees and sky pass by, her expression thoughtful and calm. "Mommy," she said suddenly. "Yes, baby. I think Grandpa's happy now. I think he knows we're safe." I smiled, tears blurring my vision. "I think so too, sweetheart." We drove home through the summer afternoon, sunlight streaming through the windows, my daughter's voice filling the car with stories and questions and laughter. We'd survived. Together. And somewhere I believed my father was watching over us, finally at peace. That night, after Chloe had fallen asleep, I sat down at my laptop and began to write. Not for anyone else, just for us. We'd returned from the cemetery as the sun was setting, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. Dinner had been spaghetti, Dad's favorite, now our tradition. Chloe had talked nonstop about science camp, about Emma and Sophie, about the mushrooms and trees and ecosystems she was learning about. After dinner came bath time, story time, and tucking her into bed. "I love you, Mommy," she'd whispered, her eyes already closing. "I love you too, sweetheart. Sweet dreams." I'd stood in her doorway for a long time after that, watching her sleep. Her face was peaceful, no nightmares tonight. Her breathing was steady and calm. My hero. My everything. At 10 o'clock, I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. A blank document stared back at me, the cursor blinking expectantly. I wasn't sure why I felt compelled to write this down, but I knew I needed to. I needed to remember. I needed to process. I needed to honor what we'd been through. I typed a title, "The Voice That Saved Me." Chloe's story. Our story. Dad's story. Then I typed the first line, and it felt like coming full circle. The sound of my daughter's voice after 3 years of silence was the most beautiful and terrifying thing I'd ever heard. That was exactly how I would tell this story, but now I knew how it ended. Now I knew we survived. I wrote for hours that night. Not for publication, not for anyone else to read, just to remember what we'd endured, what we'd learned, how we'd healed, why it mattered. To honor Chloe's courage, to honor Dad's memory, to remember that we were survivors, not victims. 6 years married to a lie, a sister who'd betrayed everything, a father taken too soon, a daughter who'd sacrificed her voice, and somehow we were still here. We were okay. More than okay. We were happy. I typed out the lessons I'd learned. Trust your instincts. Listen to silence. Family is who you choose. Children are wiser than we think. Justice takes time, but is possible. Healing is real. True love wins. I saved the document as Marley and Chloe _ourstory.docx and closed the laptop. I felt lighter. I checked on Chloe one more time before bed. She was still sleeping, her lips moving slightly in her dreams, forming real words now, not silence. "Mommy," she murmured. Just that one word. It was everything. 6 months later, in July 2025, our story continued in ways I couldn't have imagined that July night. Chloe had turned 7 in October. We'd thrown her the princess party she'd chosen pink decorations, a castle cake her friends Emma and Sophie dressed as knights. She'd laughed so hard she got the hiccups. It was perfect. She was in 2nd grade now, thriving. Her teacher said she had a gift for creative writing. I wasn't surprised. She'd lived inside a real story for 3 years. Now she was learning to tell her own. "I want to be a writer when I grow up," she'd announced one morning. "Or a scientist. Maybe both." "You can be anything you want, sweetheart," I'd told her. In November, I'd done something I never thought I would. I'd established a foundation, the William Collins Fund for Children's Advocacy. Its mission was to help children who witnessed something wrong, who were too afraid to speak up, who needed someone to believe them when they finally found their voice. We partnered with child psychologists, schools, and law enforcement. We trained teachers to recognize signs of trauma. We funded therapy for kids who couldn't afford it. We created safe spaces for children to tell their stories. The first event had been last month. Whitney had spoken, sharing how investigative journalism could give voice to the voiceless. A child psychologist had discussed recognizing selective mutism, and I had told our story, not all of it, but enough. Enough to show that silence sometimes spoke louder than words. Enough to show that children were braver than we ever gave them credit for. No child should have to carry secrets like Chloe did, I'd said to the room full of educators and advocates. And no child should feel like silence is their only option for safety. The response had been overwhelming. Donations, volunteers, families reaching out for help. We were making a difference. Dad would have been proud. Derek and Celeste were still in prison where they belonged. Derek sent letters occasionally. They all went straight into the shredder unopened. Celeste sent nothing, which was predictable. They were the past, not our future. Whitney had published a series of articles about the case. She'd won a regional journalism award and dedicated it to Chloe, the bravest source I ever had. She was still Aunt Whitney, still family, the kind you choose. And us, we were happy, healing, safe, together. I'd learned that sometimes the quietest people aren't the weak ones. They're just waiting for the right moment to speak. And when they do, the world changes. One evening in January, Chloe called from her room. "Mommy, can you read me a story?" I was at the kitchen table updating our document, adding the new chapters of our life. I smiled. "How about tonight you read to me?" I called back. Her laughter echoed through the house, bright and free. "Okay, I'll pick the best one." I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes, listening to my daughter's voice drift down the hallway as she chose a book. She read about adventures and magic and happy endings, her voice confident and clear, stumbling only occasionally over the bigger words. The most beautiful sound in the world. The voice that saved us both. Looking back now, I see the warning signs I ignored. My father's concerned questions about Derek before our wedding. Celeste's sudden interest in our finances after Dad's death. The late-night calls Derek took in another room. I told myself I was being paranoid that family betrayal like this couldn't happen to me. But it did. Family betrayal isn't always obvious. It wears the mask of love while plotting your destruction. If I could give you one piece of advice, don't be like me. Don't ignore your instincts when something feels wrong. Don't trust blindly just because someone shares your blood or your bed. Don't dismiss the quiet warnings that whisper in the dark. The lessons I learned came at a terrible cost. I learned that family revenge and family betrayal often walk hand in hand. Those closest to you know exactly where to strike. I learned that silence can be both a weapon and a shield. I learned that children see more than we realize, and their silence often speaks volumes. But I also learned this: God gave me a daughter, brave enough to sacrifice her voice for 3 years. God gave me a friend like Whitney who never stopped believing. God gave me the strength to fight back when everything seemed lost. In my darkest moment, when family betrayal surrounded me and family revenge seemed impossible, God's grace carried us through. The path to family revenge, not in hatred, but in justice, became clear only through faith. This story is real in its lessons, though crafted in its telling. The truth remains: trust your instincts, protect your children, and never underestimate the power of speaking up, even after years of silence. If you've made it this far, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a 2 in the comments so I know you're still with me. Share this story if it touched your heart, and subscribe for more true-to-life lessons wrapped in unforgettable narratives. Some stories need to be told even when they're hard to hear.